Folks, we are here with Kurt Heisey. Thanks for coming.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Yeah. Long-time friend.
Yes, yeah. Long time.
Probably. But I also started a business, and that business accidentally grew into a multi-million-dollar business. You know how much money a good idea will make you? None. You actually have to have the courage to step out and do something. All those really difficult times were great learning situations now that we look back at it. 是的，你想过说的中文吗? Or would you rather I speak English?
Yeah, English is better.
Okay.
That was cool.
I don't have to live by my emotion. I just need to do what I'm supposed to do. Courage usually feels scared to me. I began to realize, that's only an emotion, not something that I need to gauge my life by. They say that in a marriage, the thing a husband needs the most from his wife is respect. We gain that respect when we act with courage. You want to help your marriage out? Be courageous to do the right thing. Whether I think it's a success or I think it's a failure is really not important. The journey is what's important. And it's the growth that's important. I believe the most valuable thing we have here is our relationships. Your dad's a lifelong friend. What a great treasure. The relationships that last are just so valuable.
Magic.
Yeah, we are live. Pickleball has become like kind of a big deal. It's kind of replacing larger tennis, I think, for recreation.
I saw a guy with a T-shirt that said, "Make tennis courts great again." Pickleball.
Did you invent pickleball?
No, I did not.
Okay, because Dan Myers, the community center director, years and years ago, maybe 6-7 years ago, was telling me this is the next big thing. And then I started seeing it on your page, and man, you were doing stuff with the return, the little return machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Folks, we are here with Kurt Heisey. Thanks for coming.
Hey, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Long-time friend.
Yes, long time, probably since forever almost.
Yeah.
In my case, anyways, we've known you a long time, and we value every time you were speaking. I know a lot of my group, my buddy, my friends, they say the same thing. Oh man, they have their Mount Rushmore of Rhema teachers or whatever that they used to love to listen to, and you were on there. So no, this is a huge thing for us to have you on. You have so much to teach us. So that's what we're here for. We're sponges.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So this is Kurt Heisey. Nick is here as well.
Yep.
Can you just take a second and just tell us about yourself, what you do, what you're passionate about?
Okay. A little bit about me. I'm married to a wonderful, wonderful wife. Happily married 43 years.
Happens to be in studio.
Yeah. Yes. And
so that's the right answer.
So for over 35 years, I pastored, but I also had started a business, and that business accidentally grew into a multi-million-dollar business. And it's led us a lot of different places around the globe, and that combination of business as missions really became a hallmark of what we felt called to.
Cool. Yeah, and man, what was the transition like there when it's just a startup in any company? Kind of, you just don't really know, to see that success. It sounds like kind of quickly, and then.
Yeah, I always say God tricked me into starting a business because it wasn't really in my plan. Right. I had a friend that was struggling, and I said, I got a business idea for you. You ought to install seamless gutters. I'll get you going. And so I helped him get started. But then he didn't have enough work where he lived, and I said, well, come to my place once a month and stay at my house. I'll sell some jobs around here. And so once a month he would come. And then one time he said, I can't come anymore. And I said, Lord, what am I supposed to do? I promised these people the jobs. And I just heard this little voice say, who promised them the job? Me. Keep your promise. So I knew with that I had to start a business. So I say God kind of, without me knowing, cornered me into starting a business, and we went from 1 to 2 to 4 to 6 cities, and eventually we had some manufacturing there, and we had a big, long, like 25 long downspout machine. And one day I'm walking by that machine, and I heard reverberating inside of me, not audibly, but you could build a better one. I stopped, I turned around, and as I looked at this machine, I had these ideas rolling around, and I agreed. I said, yeah, I could. So I called 3 manufacturers of that kind of machine, and I said, I have an idea to improve your machine. They said, well, tell me a little bit about it. And so I told them my idea, and they said, oh, you're not an engineer, are you? No. If you were an engineer, you'd know it wouldn't work. All 3 did that. So I'm still rolling this around. A friend of mine that had a machine shop, I told him, and he said, let's do it. So we worked for 2 years. We built a machine, and it did what we said it was going to do. And at that time, we said, well, we should market that. And the internet was just coming on, so I built a web page, and we started getting orders. And so we were doing this, and in 2 years, all 3 of those companies were bankrupt. And they were out of the business, and that was like 25 years ago. And so it just kind of gradually developed from there. And so I always say, you know how much money a good idea will make you? None. You actually have to have the courage to step out and do something. Because there's a lot of people I know that have great ideas, but they never did anything. Eventually, somebody else got the same idea. So
that happens to me all the time. I feel like every idea I have, like 6 months later, coincidentally, someone else is doing it. And I'm like, dang it, they stole my idea. Nobody ever steals your idea. We're all having the ideas, and it's the people that have the courage to go out and actually do it. Yeah, it's a good lesson.
So
yeah, especially for entrepreneurs. We were just talking about this.
Man,
like the fear of failure holds people up a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And taking the first steps sometimes are the hardest.
Yeah.
And just saying, I'm going to do it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
So what exactly did you develop that made this machine better than the one that you walked by?
Instead of a 25-foot, like several ton machine, we built one under 1,000 pounds, less than 10 feet long, that did the same thing. And because we approached it from a completely different angle than standard industry, ours was lighter. Ours cost less. We sold ours for less than it cost them to produce theirs.
Oh, wow. Oh.
So
right.
Their sales dried up. And so...
What made this machine special, like size-wise? It could fit on their trucks or
yeah,
what?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it could fit in their truck. So somebody, like, he called me up and he said, I sold a job on like an 8-story building, and I promised them 1-piece downspouts. I said, yeah. He said, it's a government contract, and I got to deliver, and your machine's portable? Yeah. Oh, so, boom, he got it. So I don't know why he promised that, but nevertheless, you can make custom lengths exactly so you don't have to put pieces together. And so, yeah.
Wow.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah, just kind of saw something that needed to be better, took the leap and the courage to do it.
Yeah.
And the rest is history, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a similar thought. I was a police officer for 5 years. And when I first got into my cruiser after the academy, the radios used to like kind of attach into clamps. Mm-hmm. And it was like really uncomfortable, and it was hard. And like if you slipped, you'd throw your hand into the dash. And anyway, I was like, man, it'd be good to have like a high-powered magnet that would be on the bottom and would be on the dash that you could just kind of set it. It wasn't too hard to pull up. Anyway, a year later, all of our cruisers had it.
That's hilarious.
So like if I would have just had that idea like 5 years ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's funny though. Somebody had the courage to do it.
That would have been a great contract. Every police cruiser in America.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That'd have been pretty good.
Every car that uses a radio.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Truckers and
yeah.
Ouch, that one hurts.
Somebody did well. It wasn't me. Yeah. So interesting thing that you said there was that you had made promises and God told you that you had to fulfill those promises, more or less?
Yeah. For me, it was a matter of integrity, and I made a promise to those people. Now, it was based on somebody else, but I made the promise. And when that was going to fall through, I had to figure out how could I keep my word to that person. And I think that's important foundation for any business is that I don't think business is like rocket science. You do what you promise to do in the best way that you can, and that will give you a foundation for success. If you don't have that, you're in real trouble.
We were just talking about this actually after Elliot Martin's podcast. We got talking a little bit about business in the parking lot here, and it seems like if you do your due diligence, understand your markets, then it's really about going out there and grinding if you have to for a while, but putting in the work and seeing it manifest in front of you in real time. But I think you're right. Like business, if you have a good idea that is marketable, that can be done, it's just a matter of doing it.
Yep.
Yeah. And those cornerstones of integrity go a long way, especially in small towns.
Yep.
Like you can't have a business in a small town and take advantage of people.
Yep.
Or you'll be out of business pretty quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But okay, so the blessings on that company were just kind of right in front of you. Yep. Yeah, that's pretty neat to see.
So we had some seamless gutters put on our house a couple years ago. What is I want to get more familiar with like how your business. What you've got patents on this. What are the chances that person used your machine, or are there copycat products out there, or how does that all work?
There's a number of different companies. Okay, so we developed the portable downspout machine, not the gutter machine. Mm-hmm. That was already available. Mm-hmm. And there's about 3 different manufacturers of those in the U.S. now. And so they most likely used one of those machines. Our biggest seller now is we have a line of standing seam roof panel machines. Oh. Similar concept in that there's no visible fasteners. You go on site and you make the exact length that you need, and you cut it there and install it. And so that is like become our biggest seller now.
Okay. Wow.
So
oh man, from a manufacturing standpoint, was there any technology or process that made the roof product easier because of what you did with the machine, the downspout machines? Like, were they similar? Is there some integration there at all, or was that just a completely new thing you came up with?
It's all roll forming, where you take rolls and you gradually form it going through a series of rollers. So things that we learned in the one applied to the other, but it was actually a little bit simpler. And what I've always in our business tried to do is to give a quality product at a much more affordable price than it was available in the market. So we developed a much smaller machine, and we started selling for $15,000, where the cheapest people could buy otherwise was $25,000.
Okay, wow.
And we integrated a few things. Then, after a few years of selling that, we did build a bigger one that had more functionality and that type of thing. But even now, a machine that we're selling for $40,000, we're selling like hotcakes, because we have competitors selling a machine that'll make the same. It's a board and batten siding, steel siding, and they're over $100,000.
Wow!
And we're making money at $40,000. So right. A lot of the market has come to us. In that realm. So
yeah, there's must be a balance between quality and affordability for people.
Yeah.
And as soon as you can get that sweet spot, then your market share starts to open up a bit.
Yeah.
How important is the reliability of your machines at that price point for these people? Like, I'm sure you've found a way these machines are reliable as well.
Yeah, they're absolutely reliable. Again, we've been making machinery for 25 years. And so, you learn certain things, and the technology wise from 25 years ago to now is like, if you give me a panel and you want that exact profile, I can put it in a computer and it will calculate, exactly the stresses of the metal on each piece so you don't overstretch or overstress any portion of it, so you know exactly what rollers, how to make them, where before we were guessing on our base knowledge. Now the computer is just laying that right out to us, and in that way it makes it much easier to do custom stuff for people too.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so that took you all over the globe then? Did it kind of expand out from just the U.S.?
Yeah. So we've exported to like 30 different countries. Not on our main market is the U.S. because that's where the money is. But we ship a lot to Canada and some other countries, but not as much to other countries.
Okay. I wonder if that's mostly like engineering, technology, or architectural. Like it seems like we use steel a lot. We use siding a lot and plastics a lot.
Yeah.
Where if you go to more third world countries, it's a lot of brick, stone.
Yeah.
So I wonder if maybe that has something to do with it. Who knows?
Well, that's about all I got. I'm not that smart, so
that's
we've reached the peak of what I'm able to understand.
Were there growing pains, like at any point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Regular growing pains, regular.
Consistent.
Is this worth it? Oh no, this happened. It's going to cost me a lot of money, to get over this problem. And so there was a lot of situations like that. And my wife knows, though sometimes I come home, it's like, man, we got a big, big problem. How are we going to solve it? All those really difficult times were great learning situations now that we look back at it.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, it's like, I can't see much good coming out of it,
Yeah.
But you always get through it, and in the end, you're better than before. So
yeah, even if it doesn't reflect maybe in the company growth or whatever at the time,
right.
Over the longer scale,
Yeah.
you see the benefits from those struggles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people would see a successful business like that or an idea or a product and just think that you have it easy. Like, everything just came well and there was blessing all the way through. And it's like, yeah, there's some of that, but nobody really sees those conversations when you get home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're telling your wife,
Right.
I don't know what we're going to do here.
Yeah.
Not many people tackle the kind of company and product that you like. Those are really hard problems to solve for anybody, and someone's got to do it. And so, yeah, of course you had the same problems that, like what you're describing to me, I'm like, oh yeah, it sounds like you'd have a lot of problems doing what you do. Well, you were the one to take it on, and you were the one that took those problems, and someone had to solve them. And yeah, I mean,
Right.
It is what it is. Like, of course, something that difficult, like figuring out how to even develop it, then you have to figure out how to efficiently manufacture it. Who wants to manufacture it? Like all that stuff just sounds like there would be so many problems to overcome.
Well, then there's employees and scaling and marketing.
All that tough stuff.
You got a new product, people have to know about it.
Yep.
Like that's a whole side that people don't really understand.
Yeah.
So you went through a lot of those.
Yeah,
I would love to. Got any examples?
And I'm not saying we did very well at it. We just over time. It seems if you just stick with it long enough, you will eventually get enough knowledge to get you through. And I may not be the best at this or at this, but we make progress. Maybe somebody would have they'd have $1 billion company. But not me. But we're okay.
Yeah.
You got a big one? Do you have a big one that you always remember, or
Like a big
learning
situation
experience?
that was, yeah.
I can't think of it. Yeah.
It's all repressed memories.
Oh, yeah. So one time we were having problems with a customer and a bank wire, and we were ordering machinery, from a supplier. We were ordering some things and stuff. And I called the supplier and I said, hey, we sent you the money, when they come? And they go, you didn't send us any money. I said, yeah. I said, we got. And so anyway, we got scammed out of $40,000. Oh. Because somebody intercepted an email, changed slightly the email, and during the conversation and stuff said, oh, we switched banks, so we sent to a bank in Ohio instead. So anyway, all of a sudden I realized, I know exactly where I was when I realized what had happened, and we just had lost $40,000, and that may not be much to you guys, okay?
Yeah,
but
right.
at that point in time, 15 years ago, $40,000 was like $1 million, and I'm standing there, and I said, "Well, Lord, what do you say?" And the only thing I heard was, "This is the beginning of your graduation ceremony." I told my wife what I felt the Lord said, and I said, "Well, I guess we better start rejoicing then, if this is the beginning of something brand new." And so we just spent some time just thanking the Lord, and that in the midst of what to us looked like disaster. And of course, we made it through, and came out on the other side. And we saw some things really begin to turn also around that time too. So, yeah.
Yeah, in the depths of
maybe
what would have been the hardest point. Was there a point when you were kind of, before receiving that word, was it like, I guess we're done?
It was actually... Yeah, it's like your heart like sinks to the bottom of your stomach, and you're like, how can I survive? What's going on? This was like major amount of money for us, and now we're not only are we out that money, but our supplier hasn't been paid now, so we got to come up to pay them to get what we need. And so all these things are going on, and then pretty quickly, okay, Lord, what are you saying? And so then. Without any natural things changing, it really changed our attitude.
Yeah, how important.
And so,
Yeah, a lot of difficulties that anybody goes through in any aspect of life, mindset matters.
Yeah.
And when you can, it seems to me like you kind of have the disposition of, even when you were talking about problems and just, I'll fix the problem. Like if you can have that mindset alone, then when bigger things come along, it's just your natural disposition, and then you can navigate those difficult things, because not a lot of people can do that.
I think that comes from experience when you've had problems and God's helped you. You've had problems, you've overcome, you've had problems, and you realize, okay, this is a problem. He's helped in the past, so he hasn't changed. He'll help today, and he'll help tomorrow, so.
Yeah, I need to remember that sometimes.
Well, we all do.
Day.
We all do. Yeah.
I could get a little better at that. No stress. No need to stress. Just ask for help.
Yeah, well, and there's other things too, personality mixtures in there too. If you have a little bit more of a glass half empty versus glass half full attitude in your personality, I mean, that could be even more difficult.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean when you say it changed your attitude, that experience? Like just remembering to rely on the Lord more? Or
I think it helped me to not just look at from my own perspective, to, hey, Lord, what's your perspective on this? And to try to not just see it through my glasses, but that there's a different perspective.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay. Very nice.
Well, especially when you're in the situation and stress is involved, and there's the enemy's trying to get at you, you become like a horse with blinders.
Yeah.
And you can't see the big picture, and you can't see deep, and you can't, you miss the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's for the natural inclination is to take charge. Like I'm in charge. I need to fix this, or maybe that's what got you in the problem in the first place. More often than not, probably that's what got you there in the first place. But very interesting.
So is that like a singular business venture that you've been doing then for ever? Because that pretty much makes you an inventor.
So I'm an idea guy. Okay. Is what I am. And I like to look at things and say, there could be a better way. And what is that better way? And how would I improve that? Just, it's, whether it's a magnet, on a radio, or what would be a better way? What would be more convenient? Is there some way that this could be more cost effective that nobody's doing? And if so, what could we do? So I ask a lot of questions like that in my own mind, and that's just kind of part of my personality.
Okay. So when you have those ideas and those you're a visionary with different things that can be better. Do you have to bring somebody on, or a team or a partner or somebody who's a little bit more practically minded that can put not just pen to paper, but then paper to product?
Yeah, team's really, really important. We found a team really important in growing the business, because you have to have everybody in place doing what they're really designed to do. And when they're doing what they're designed to do, they flourish. And so, like, I'm not very good with electronics. So when we brought a fellow on board about 7 years ago, an electrical engineer, all of a sudden, now all of our machines can be touch, screen, computerized and that type of thing. So just up things, and I wasn't capable of doing that. I could see that would be beneficial, but now everything, that's an option. Well, we can touch screen, batch, length control, whatever you want, on that. And so, it's really upgraded what we could give the end customer.
Yeah. That takes a lot of self-reflection to know what you're not good at, and then find people who are going to, make your company grow in different areas that you didn't even know. Like, yeah, you might have that thought that, a computer on here would streamline the efficiency on job sites or whatever, but how do I do it? Mm-hmm. Find the person who knows how to do it.
Yeah, at that level, it's literally necessary, because you just can't engineer that if you can't engineer that. Yeah, the team becomes quite literally important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've never thought about it that way. I've always thought about it as more like a macro idea. Like, you got to have the team around you and delegate and diversify your team. But like, no, sometimes it really is just, we need an engineer because we can't do this math. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
Got to complicate everything.
Yeah, I know. There's so many things in my business I'm not good at. But you are in China a good amount.
Yes.
You're familiar with China. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what that is? Because you mentioned that this business opportunity has kind of been able to expand your missions horizon a little.
是的，你想我说的中文吗? Or would you rather I speak English?
Yeah, English is better.
Okay.
That was cool.
So I had an idea on that for a new machine, and I didn't know exactly what was available in the world market. And I said, I should really go to China if we're going to compete in the world market, see what they're building, and see if we could partner. And so long story short, made my first trip to China, met a guy that was just starting his business, and we've been friends for 15 years now.
Wow.
And he was just starting, and he had this little shop, and I spent a week with him, and anyway, he's coming to visit us here in another couple months again. Once a year he'll come, but he was doing a roll forming style machine that we did, and so that's how we began to go to China. And then we began to make connections with Chinese here and with the underground church over there. And so that became a whole new mission field for us when we would go to China under a business visa. We would do a little business, and then I'd go do an underground church conference. I'd go do things. One time I spoke to Mary Kay representatives, at a big conference, and just different things. It's just some amazing stories of doors that were opened that I would have never seen open unless I had the business. And in fact, when all the missionaries were kicked out of China, my business visa keeps me going back in. So, yeah.
What year was that when missionaries were kicked out of China?
It was kind of around COVID.
Okay.
About around COVID, they really were pushing them out and getting them out and not back in.
Yeah, because they're coming from other countries and infection and so on. That's pretty spectacular. The underground church, you said.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
Well, another way to refer to it is the unregistered church, because China has an approved church.
Okay.
That there's always cameras. There's facial recognition whenever you go. So if you have a job for the government and they catch your face at the church, then don't you ever go to that church again, or you lose your job. Okay. facial recognition. Somebody from the Communist Party will be listening to every sermon. That your sermon would have to get approved before it's given out. And so they don't experience the freedom that like churches here experience.
Sure.
So then there's the people that say, that's not the kind of church and freedom we want. And so they meet in unregistered churches, which are illegal, and yet every city's a little bit different, and you got to figure out what's what in each city.
Yeah, what's kosher? Kind of what?
Yeah.
Why these registered churches? Why does the Chinese government even go put in the effort to allow those? Do you know?
I think because they don't feel that they have enough power to squash Christianity, so they let some be there.
Okay. They can pick and choose their battles or their mitigating response. Man, that is fascinating.
So with them needing to approve everything that happens in these registered churches and needing to approve the sermons, does that water it down, or are things pretty loosely approved? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so you can preach about love. You can preach about the fruit of the Spirit. You can preach about anything except anything against government policy.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So there's plenty of true biblical principles.
And there will be a picture of Chairman Xi in the back of the church.
Okay.
It's just as you walk out, so you know who you also are answering to. It's
man, he's watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And literally is watching with those little cameras going around,
Incredible. Yeah, I can't even wrap my head around that. It sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
But it's just reality.
I was walking down the street, and I said, you know what? I'm going to stop now and just look around and see how many cameras I could count pointing on where I was on the street. And I counted like about 12 or 15 that could see me where I was on the sidewalk.
Wow.
And with their facial recognition, somebody says, do you feel somebody's watching you? Nobody's following me. The cameras, they know exactly where I'm at. So I'll tell you a story. Our goddaughter's husband, he got a new job. He's an engineer over there, and he picked up a colleague at the subway station. He said, I'll pick you up to Subway because we need to drive to the next city. So he picked him up, and he's driving along, and he gets a message from the police. He said, the fellow that you just picked up that is riding in your car committed a financial crime 6 years ago. He said, I don't know if he cheated on his taxes or what, but that guy was facial recognition tracked out of the subway. The license plate was tracked. His ownership with his ID was tracked, and boom, you got a message. Be careful. This guy, he might be a whatever,
Yeah, con man.
Yeah, so the stories are true. Like the television that we watch with future scenarios like that, like people wonder, is that really happening? It is in China. And maybe, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We made a joke on the last podcast about something political, some Mount Rushmore joke. And I thought later, we just laughed our heads off on camera. And no repercussions at all.
Right. Yeah.
We don't know at all what that life is like.
Not so much there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have friends that say, they're very, very careful. He says, because whenever I say something about the chairman, he says, within a day, my computer crashes. I thought, but the more and more I hear repeated stories,
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well.
Well, good. Well, that wraps up the first segment. So our cameras go for about 29 minutes, 29 seconds, and then they decide they're done.
Okay.
They take a break. So I just have to reset them quick, and then we'll come right back.
Okay.
After we come back from the break, I'd love to talk more about being courageous as men, or maybe we can speak to women too, but we're men, so that might be a little bit more relatable. Just to family, business, entrepreneurship, stuff like that.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
All right. We'll be right back, folks. All right, folks, we're back. Before we left the break, we kind of touched on courage and what it takes and what it looks like and the need for it. And I would dare to say this is a time, especially in our country, where, especially for men, it needs to be a significant step up and to try to kind of combat some of the issues that men face specifically. But also to encourage men into business and taking chances and risks and putting in the work. So that is something that we wanted to talk to you about. You just take it from there.
Yeah. So one thing that I've begun to realize is that I'm no longer afraid or worried when I'm scared. Because being scared or nervous about something is an emotion. And I don't have to live by my emotion. I just need to do what I'm supposed to do. And so I was looking back and, you look in the Bible, you find Gideon. He's hiding. He's threshing out wheat in a wine press. The enemy has come and just permeated and stolen everything. They're in really bad shapes. And they have this woke culture called Baal that everybody's worshiping and everybody's believing that somehow if they do this Baal thing that might save them. And God tells him, first of all, you got to tear down that Baal thing. Well, he was really scared about that too. He said, well, I ain't going to do it during the day. I'll do it at night. Maybe nobody will see him. Well, they didn't see him, but the next day. But the first thing is that it took courage, number one, to tear down that Baal worship. And number two, then it took courage to actually go after the visible enemy, which were the Midianites. So I've really been thinking a lot, how important courage is. And I think that many times we think that when we're scared, we don't have courage. That courage should feel good. But I think the good feeling only comes after you're scared, you do the right thing, and the result of that, you feel good. Courage usually feels scared to me. Mm-hmm. And so I began to realize, if I'm nervous about something, if I'm worried about what somebody's going to say, if I'm nervous about that, that's only an emotion, not something that I need to gauge my life by. I need to gauge my life by what's right, what's God want me to do, what's called for in this situation, and then the end result, I'll feel good about what I did. And so it just has changed my perspective a lot, and so that I don't worry about, oh, well, I feel scared. Okay, well, no problem. What's the right thing to do in this situation? Rather than being led by that emotion or that feeling, which, as we all know, being led by feelings and emotions can lead us into a bad place. So,
yeah, that is definitely a problem in today's society. Like there is a segment of the generation coming up that is raised to avoid those bad feelings, and that's not the safe place, and you need to be in the safe place, and the safe place is good, and we stay away from fear and what makes us uncomfortable. That is definitely a problem. So like thinking of that nervous feeling or that fear is actually what courage feels like is very interesting. What you said. Yeah. Like maybe that's what courage feels like, is being nervous. It's whether you choose to take that next step or take the step backwards. That feeling is courage. Yeah.
Yeah, because see, then you're not trying to get rid of the feeling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're just saying, oh, this is an alert. Make sure I do the right thing.
Okay.
Because if I feel scared, let's do something so I feel safe. Well, then you won't do the right thing. And you won't get the end result of courage. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a difference between suppressing a feeling and emotional intelligence to understand that feeling. And when you feel anxious or fearful about something that may require courage or may result in courage, that is what makes it the virtue,
Yes.
right? Because if it's not something worth attaining to do the right thing for, then it's meaningless.
Yeah, because love requires courage. Because for me to love my wife, it takes courage sometimes to do something uncomfortable, but it's doing the right thing. You know, it's doing what's good for them. And so many times, I think men, we battle insecurities. And in our insecurities, we're worried about what other people will say. And so we're nervous. Like maybe we thought, I really need to go talk to that guy. I don't know. I don't know how to respond. I don't know. Should I make that phone call or not? And then we're battling. And that's when we need courage. We know we should do it. Let's just have the courage to do what we know that we should do and let the results come. So there's so many like little things of life, little decisions that are really simple that just take courage to do the right thing. And so I'm working on that. I haven't got to where I want to be yet, but I'm increasingly becoming aware of what I should do in situations like, well, what do you mean I feel nervous, Oh, okay, let's do the right thing. So,
yeah, I think you could apply that to pretty much everything. Yeah. Self-improvement. It takes courage to realize that you're not as good at something than you think you are.
Yes.
Or to do something difficult that's going to make you better later down the road, even though it's going to require sacrifice and pain and healing. And that's a process people don't want to go to. Avoid pain, like Nick was saying. Yeah. Hey, whatever you do, avoid pain and discomfort. Focus on your feelings. Be comfortable. That's very much what our culture is embroiled in right now.
I'm trying to figure out now how often I do that subconsciously, run away from a decision subconsciously, because they're little. Often the decisions are little throughout the day, and how you kind of like quickly move the other direction without even thinking about it. It's a dangerous habit to get into. Yeah, it's very convicting, for sure.
What would you say to a young man, maybe in late teens, early 20s, who's struggling with that?
Well, I think anybody can look back on decisions that they've made in the past and begin to look, okay, so what was I feeling before I made that stupid decision, and how'd that work out for me? Because we all have some history, and we all have a history of stupid stuff that we did, and we kind of made a monument of stupidity, because we paid the price, It's like, okay, how'd that work out? Didn't work out good. So learning to train where before we do the stupid thing, we stop and say, okay, I'm feeling nervous. I don't want to do this. Okay, what should I do? Because sometimes we just barrel straight ahead, like with blinders on. This is the way I'm going. I don't care what anybody says. I'm doing this, and and sometimes it is based on fear, because sometimes that fear of failure will keep us from doing something we should do. No, I'm not going to take that job because I don't know if I can be successful at that. And I've never, and we make all these little excuses. And so, no, I'll just stay here in my own little cubicle, So, courage. I think the world is looking for some men of courage. I mean, if one man, Gideon, turned their whole culture around, and his culture was a mess. If we live in a culture that's a mess, what can happen if one man says, you know what, I'm going to have courage. I'm going after the Baal of my day, the wokeness of my day, and I am going to have courage. And whatever that might mean for him, I think this world's looking for men of courage in every situation.
Do you have any specific things that you think are needed, like specific things that we're missing that we need courage for? Any that come to mind? Like what gets you thinking about this? Like what do you see on the news or what do you see in your daily life that spurs this back to the front of your mind. Like, man, that was not good. We need more of this. We need more courage. What got you thinking about this?
Well, I get looking at my own life.
Okay.
And I say, why am I wanting to make this decision that I think is a stupid decision? What's motivating me? Because intellectually I can say that's not a good decision, but inside there's this conflict, and I realize is that, I needed to have courage that in my own life to make the right decisions. And so I have it's just been, in the last couple of months, I've just been thinking about this a lot on how important it is for us. Many times we know the right thing, but we lack the courage to do it. And it takes courage to have faith. It takes courage to show love. It takes courage to sometimes pick up that phone and call someone or go visit someone. And sometimes it's inconsequential, but inside, well, I don't know what they're going to say. So have some backbone, Kurt. Come on, just do it. And
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think that with your experience and your wisdom with where you are in life, there are many people don't easily change, and without voices saying this, they might not come up with this stuff on their own until they're well into their many hundreds of mistakes. And that's good for them. It's a good way to learn, is to make hundreds of mistakes. A lot of us, that's how we learn. But it's nice to have a little help if somebody hears this. We need people like you saying these things out loud, because I can think of people in my life that need to hear this. Myself included, but sometimes you see the people that you love around you or yourself, or you see even outside situations where, man, like there was not a lot of humility in that conversation. Like that person really needs to, and they need a voice like you in the back of their mind, helping them they could just develop a little faster with voices like you, with voices like yours. So yeah, it's good stuff to say out loud. Maybe it'll save a few people years of mistakes if we can help them along with our words instead of just letting everyone make their own mistakes and learn that way.
I totally agree. I mean, even like in a marriage, sometimes I don't know if I want it. No, have courage to do the right thing. Come on, man. Lead your family. Have the courage to do the right thing, not just what maybe your buddies have done or that type of thing, because I think inside you often know the right thing, so have the courage to do it. I think that's important. And I actually think women look for a man that has courage and respect that, especially when they have the courage to do something right. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I had a little situation like that myself last night. We were talking about some business idea, Brielle and I, and I'm just super intense.
Brielle's Nick's
my wife, yeah.
wife, for everybody who doesn't know.
She is like the nicest person I've ever met. She's very kind-hearted, doesn't have a mean bone in her body, and I wouldn't say I'm the opposite, but I'm a lot more intense than she is. When I get passionate about an idea, that can come across a certain way. It's one of the many challenges that I face in my, with the personality that God blessed me with. Blessed me with. So anyway, yeah, last night we're talking about the next business idea, and I'm like getting passionate. I'm trying to make my sales pitch for what I think we should do, and it got a little too intense. And later on in the evening, I had to remind myself, like, that probably wasn't very pleasant for her, and I need to go and like say that out loud and acknowledge that I know what I did and that it probably wasn't pleasant for her. Whether she was, I don't know that, because often, in the heat of the moment, you don't know if they're ready to receive it. And I was aware that maybe she wasn't ready to receive it, but there was something in me that knew, like, I just need to get it out there, and she might not receive it for a few hours, but at least she knows that I know what I did. But that took a lot of courage. That takes a little humility, which I don't, with my wife, like, I love her so much. I don't really struggle to be that like humble. I want her to know I love her, and I'll apologize when I need to, but, it took a lot of courage to like admit that I made a mistake, but I could have ignored that and just like, we could have gone to bed with this awkwardness between her. Like, but no, I had to say it out loud, and that took just a little bit of courage to do that. So this is very interesting because I don't normally feel that way. Like the way that I felt before I realized like, I need to go say something to her. I need to go let her know that I know how intense I was and that I know it might not have been the most fun conversation for her, just so she knows I know. I don't know that that's usually the thought process behind my apologies. But it was last night, and it is very unique and feels very relevant to what you're saying right now. I think I need to hear this. Yeah, I think I need to. Now I can kind of make that connection. Like in the future, I can kind of make that connection. Like, okay, that's what that was, and I feel like I did the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good, really good stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't pat myself on the back.
Yeah, it takes courage sometimes to tone back and even be quiet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like one example for us, so about 2.5 years ago, through a variety of situations, a house in Florida came available to us, and I'm the idea guy, okay, and she's the brakes, okay, and so I realized something, and I was excited, but how am I going to present this? So it took some courage for me to back off and say, here's what I see, here's the opportunity and that type of thing, and I won't go ahead unless you give your approval. Now that took some courage because I'm ready to write the check, go and do that, and yet for me to have that courage to back off and not just blow ahead gave her great confidence, and then a couple of days later, she said, yeah, that's true. So that was...
that sounds very relatable. Yeah.
So courage, you want to look at that as courage maybe, but that really took some courage to trust God's process through my wife and our relationship. Took courage to back off sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah, or it can take courage to obviously do something that you don't want to do, but you know is right, but there's secondary consequences that you're thinking about as well. One example would be when I'm having to correct my daughter in something. Yes, it's what it needs to be done, but I battle with, I don't want her to resent me for this or for that. And it's like, if you take the courage to do what's right, everything else should sort out. But that is not easy.
Yes.
That is something that I have to kind of keep pushing toward.
Yep. Yeah. That's good stuff, man. I think I needed to hear that. Yeah. For me, I feel like I need to find a way to communicate. It sounds like I hope that with a little more experience, I can get to your level of understanding of that side of ourselves that has that passion and that balloon mentality versus the string mentality, and the balloon just having some patience and then the communication, more importantly, being able to communicate an idea that you're passionate about without letting the passion turn to, fire. It's, I think it's really cool that I can, I just needed to hear that. It's amazing. I feel like we're probably very similar in that way. And I felt very convicted about that. Like, if you're going to communicate with your wife or your business partners for the next 50 years, you need to figure out how to do it more effectively. So, that's lots of wisdom there. And yes, the reverse psychology of that, like disciplining your children and being willing to tackle that mission without the fear of resentment. And that's how we ruin our children, is when we don't listen to that voice. And that's a really great point.
It is. Yeah,
and I have two boys, and then we had our first girl, and night and day. So I know that. Yeah, it's like with the girls come along, and it's like you realize how easily you can like avoid that courageous act. That I gotta kind of treat them the same way I treated the boys. They need raising too, and to not be afraid to raise your children is because you want them to love you. You want them to like you. You got to be really careful with that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. What are your motivations there?
Yep.
I think for most men too is not necessarily having to see the world as being conquered as the achievement you can start in your own home.
Yeah.
And that is something that is not spoken about enough. You should make sure that things are in order pretty close by first, and make sure that, and well, there's really there's a lot of purpose generationally even in just being intentional about your kids and your marriage and waking up every day with the courage to say that I'm going to lead this home, or, I'm going to get better in this area of my marriage. I'm going to show more love in this situation. And I'm also going to be steadfast in my devotion to training my kids. And it goes on and on and on. Yeah. We're getting close to that mark. So why don't we just stop it a little bit early, and then we'll just reset for one more. I have a couple more questions, if that's all right.
Yep.
Doing okay for time?
No problem.
So, okay, cool. All right, we'll be right back, everybody. We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we come back from the break, and then we'll release you. All right? Thanks. All right, folks, we are back. We're just talking more about courage, and somehow a story about a bat got brought up.
Yes, yeah. So it was like our first year of marriage, and I was doing some carpentry work, and I'd gotten laid off, and so I got a job like an hour and 15 minutes away or so near where my wife's parents lived. So because of the long distance and our finances at that point in time, I would go down and I would work, spend the night at her parents', work again, and then go home. So it saved a lot on my mileage and things. So one night, about 4 a.m., I'm sleeping at her parents' house. She's at home. The phone downstairs rings. Pretty soon, her father says, "Kurt, it's Kathy on the phone." So I get Kathy in the phone, and she's hysterical. She says, "There's a bat in the house. You need to come home right away and get this thing out." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I hung the phone up, and I went upstairs, and I'm getting ready, and I felt the Lord say, "Don't go. I want her to trust me, not you." I'm fiddling around upstairs, fiddling around, and then her dad says, "Kurt, are you about ready?" So father-in-law, and so
oh, no.
yeah, soon. And so I get down and I get in my truck, and I'm about a mile away from the house. I'm going around a corner, and I felt the Lord say, "I told you not to go. She has to trust me." So I turned around and probably made a bad decision at that time. I went back to my father-in-law's house.
Should have found a local diner.
I should have been going to it all night, had a cup of coffee. But I wasn't that brilliant. And so I go in and so, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I was going around the corner, and God spoke to me and said, don't go. Kathy has to learn how to trust me, not you." My father-in-law started crying because I wasn't taking care of his daughter.
This couldn't get any worse.
This sounds bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really rough, and man, I'm working all day, and I'm thinking, my wife is angry. I tried calling her. She wouldn't. And she said, "Are you on your way?" I said, "No, God told me, Clunk, she hangs the phone. So now my new bride is hung up on me. My in-laws are mad at me, and so I went, and the whole day at work, I'm just, thinking about this. Finally, I go home, and when I got home, Kathy came, she says, "You were right." She says, "In fact, the Lord had told me before I called you, just trust me." She said, "Thank you for doing the right thing and obeying God, not me." Well, that was a rite of relief to me, because I was really struggling at that point in time. And so she realized, and so it was just something in our growth and our development that God was teaching her to trust him, because there is things that only God can provide that a husband or a wife can't provide the other partner. And if we try to suck that out of the other partner, the marriage is destined for disappointment and disaster. So it was something early in our marriage that God was teaching both of us. Make sure that what only I can provide, you look at me. Don't try to pressure your partner to give you what only I can give you. So that was a time where it took some courage for me. We were talking about courage to turn around, go back, face my wife's father, and say, just flat out, well, God told me, that's all. It's the only answer I had, and he's crying, and I'm like, oh boy, this is really, really bad. And then my wife hangs up on me. It was a rough day for me.
What's interesting about that story is that you did not know yet until the end that the Lord had also spoken to her. And so had you shown up, that might have been something that she potentially hid from you, but in her heart, she knows you didn't. That could have caused some crazy conflict inside of both of you. But
so it's
that's
good
a great
that God
example.
told me again around that corner.
Right.
Hey, I told you. Okay, because I was really struggling driving. What do I do?
And the growth in your marriage, because from her respect for you, probably increased a lot. And there's just so many good things.
That's why courage. A wife looks for a husband to have the courage to do the right thing. And they say that in a marriage, the thing a husband needs the most from his wife is respect. Mm-hmm. And we gain that respect when we act with courage. So you want to help your marriage out? Be courageous to do the right thing, no matter what the cost or what the other thing.
The best story you could have told to get that idea across, because you could have been the knight in shining armor, and that wouldn't have been the courageous act in that story.
Yep.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah, that's kind of wild to think about.
Yep.
Yeah, men seek purpose a lot of the times. I think, and it's part of our culture. We're trying to make everything so egalitarian, and everybody is equal in every way. It's like men and women are different. Yeah, equal in value, but different and need different things. And when you're trying to pull something maybe out of your spouse that's not natural for them, not in sync with their personality, or what, for a million different reasons.
Yeah. Brielle tells me all the time that, God tells me all the time that Brielle's the one that kills the spiders in the house. So
yeah, right. That's exactly where I was going with that. Yep. That's good. Be in tune. Just back onto the courage point, kind of one more time. If you were in a room full of men, especially maybe with entrepreneurial mindsets or visionaries or people who want to be go-getters, but they just can't get by that fear of failure. They can't get, past some of the reservations that they might have. What are people going to think of me if I fail this? If I am successful, that's also a concern.
Yep.
Because something I've been listening to recently in some of the streams of information I've been taking is that people will encourage you in your success until you get to a certain point, and then it can be a reverse, an Uno reverse card, and they start to be like, oh, it must be nice that you're successful, and it's like, you were
crabs in the bucket.
Yeah, you were just there, so that can be a fear too. So if there was 20 guys, entrepreneurs, what's the biggest thing that you took away from your journey?
I've made so many mistakes. Yet every mistake was a learning process that I needed to get to the next level. So I no longer worry so much about whether what I'm doing, whether it's a mistake or not. Because if it's the right thing, then great, I'm on to the next step. If it's the wrong thing, there's a reason why I made the wrong decision, and the consequences of that wrong decision will teach me what I need to learn to get to the next decision, next level. So whether it's a success or a failure, or whether I think it's a success or I think it's a failure, is really not important. The journey is what's important. And it's the growth that's important, and it's the development and what I'm learning and growing, because I have a certain capacity right now for a variety of things, but I might need a much bigger capacity 5 years down the road. And I don't know what I need, and I don't have what I need now for that. And so the decisions I make, either whether they're right decisions or they're the wrong decision, that's the journey to grow and develop, to become who I was designed to become, so that I can fulfill that next level. So yet I don't worry so much about whether the decision is right or wrong, because if it's wrong, you'll pay the price, and that will teach you what you need to know to overcome why you made the wrong decision. So, if that makes sense to you.
Very much. Very much
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I think that people get very uncomfortable with the idea of pain and failure, but it's literally how you grow. Think about a muscle.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're at your current state, the only way for you to grow and become stronger and better is to break down that existing muscle first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no room if you don't break down that muscle for it to grow.
Yeah, while using your best judgment in every decision, not just plowing forward, without any wisdom at all. Like that obviously is an important factor. Is you want to try your best to make the right decision, but that paralysis analysis is really a big problem for a lot of people. But the only way to propel yourself forward is to make decisions. And if you don't make decisions and you're scared of a decision, which I face all the time, you got to make a decision, because you have to know whether it was right or wrong so that you can then move on to the next problem. Like you can't stay stagnant. Sometimes the only way forward is you got to make a choice, and that takes courage. And yeah, looking at your problems as learning opportunities really could reframe and make it easier to make a decision. Sometimes you got to move forward by making decisions.
So it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is that immediate success, then you're really, really worried about that decision. But if your goal is to grow and develop and become who you were designed to be, you're going to realize that this decision is just going to be a stepping stone, whether it's success or not. That's not the key point. It's your growth and development. And that's true in so many things. I mean, like in sports, yeah, you want to play against someone that's really, really good. Why? Because it's going to challenge you. Even if you lose, you're going to develop skills that you didn't have by playing somebody you could beat easily. So it's not the winning or losing, it's your development and your growth.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sure. We know that doing difficult things safely even takes courage, like with children. Dr. Jordan Peterson would call that the zone of proximal development. Children learn the most when they're doing dangerous things carefully. It's like, it sounds like it could be applied to business. Taking risk and failures, okay, learn from it, get your character in line to fulfill your ultimate goals and move from there. That is some hard wisdom. Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people see life that way. I definitely struggle to see life that way sometimes. Like, it's okay to fail. Like, we have business venture opportunities where we could be making a move now. And if the due diligence is done, what's stopping us, Maybe I need some more courage. Maybe I need to grow in my courage. All right, last thing, and we'll kind of wrap up. This has been a blast. I hope you've enjoyed being here.
I've had a great time.
This is great. What's next for you?
Okay, well,
World Pickleball Champion.
World Pickleball Championship. So actually, the last couple of years, I've really gotten into pickleball. And my brother and I, we often play together. who's a year older than me. So we played in the senior games, and we won the New York State championship.
Whoa.
Then we won the Pennsylvania championship. Okay, so we actually
On the circuit.
we qualified for nationals. We won 4 gold medals this summer, so in 4 different tournaments. And not that we blew everybody out, but we were able to squeak through some. And anyway, we did. So
that's awesome.
So so I'd love to play people better than me, because it's like, man, anybody else, that would never be coming back, and they're bringing it back. So it helps challenge you to a higher level. And so I think that's there's a lot of things that you can learn that apply to life in sports, and many different things. And so that's just one thing that I enjoy. I have a competitive nature to me, and so my brother does too. And we got the plan. We found, hey, we do pretty well, and so we've been working on it. Yeah.
And you're staying at a place that has an Airbnb that has a court.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I play on that court. I've dabbled.
Where's that? Like here locally?
Matt and Tish's.
Oh, okay.
In the
Gotcha.
gym.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I like what you said, especially regarding sports. I'm the same way. I want to play the best. You're not going to be very successful against the best a lot of times.
Right.
And we play like fast pitch softball. And Calder, who we just had on, my brother, was just at the Worlds. That's the best of the best.
Yeah.
And you can find yourself challenging aspects of your character. But I think that's in all of us a little bit, wanting to kind of stack up where we're at.
Measuring stick. Get the
So
old
do they
measuring
have
stick out?
Yeah, get the old measuring stick out. Let them know where you're at.
Yeah.
There's nationals? You qualify for nationals? Is that?
Yeah, it's the senior games, and we're in the 60. They have age brackets. So yeah, we actually qualified in 2 states and for nationals. So yeah, we'll probably go to that next year.
Just 48 more states.
Yeah.
So like, what do you mean nationals? Like what does that look like?
I had never been there, so I don't know. But every state has 3 teams that qualify. Doesn't mean they'll go, but every state has a state senior games, and then 3 will qualify from that state, and then they have
a big tournament somewhere.
Big tournament. I mean, they have a lot of things. Pickleball is one. I mean, they have cornholing, a variety of things, ping pong, and
ESP
stuff.
and the Ocho.
Yeah, so
It's
qualify
amazing.
means you're like you got an invite, and you can
Yeah,
choose
you're
to go
in
and-
like one of the top 3 in your state.
Okay, and you guys will probably go to that next year. You said, or
Probably, yeah.
Whoa.
must be pretty good.
Yeah,
Talking
we'll
like
need an
that,
update.
yeah, we'll probably go.
We'll need an update on that.
We'll probably
No.
dominate.
There's professional cornhole, right? There's a professional cornhole
Yeah.
league, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
It's pretty serious. People
Yeah.
take it pretty serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that what is next for you? Was that your answer to the question?
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
Let's get back to that. Sorry for interrupting.
Although that
Stupid
is-
me and
that
my
is-
dumb
that
jokes.
is part of the mix,
Sure.
Part of the mix. I've played pickleball in China and in Canada and the U.S., so I've played a few different places.
You're an
but,
international player, officially.
Yeah.
So in reality, besides pickleball,
Hey, that is real.
yes. In other news, what's next for you?
So I've spent the last couple years doing more mentoring of like pastors and things like that. That maybe they don't have a place or a safe place to go and to talk about situations and things. And so I've been doing more and more of that like the last couple years, and some of them, they just so appreciate it because they can't really talk to their church or to their board because that has different political ramifications in there, and they just need someone that, hey, I don't know how to handle this, I've never done that. And so I can listen. I may or may not have any advice for them, but I can pray for them. But sometimes just them having someone to talk to that is safe is really important. And so I think I see a lot more of that in my future.
Yeah, it's pretty impactful stuff.
Yeah. Is that something that you feel pretty passionate about? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to help if you didn't have passion for it. Why is that? Like, where did that passion come from?
Well,
being in that position
I
where you
pastored for like more than 30 years. And so I've been through, I know what they're going through. I know some of the difficulties. I know some of the struggles that they have and different things. So, and they know that I've had that experience. And so to them, it's safe. And I didn't always have a person to talk to. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't, but I believe that that's really, really valuable to have that mentoring without any strings attached. You know, I mean, everybody's got to, like, some people have denominational structures and they're answerable to somebody, but they don't have somebody that really mentors, listens, and cares for them. So for those that don't have that, I think that's a valuable thing.
We need more of that style of mentoring these days. That's kind of a lost art, becoming a lost art. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for people to be relatable with other people.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of patience.
Too much money floating around and no one's got time for anything. And nowadays everybody wants to charge for everything. That kind of stuff is, I mean, who has time to mentor these days? I think we need a lot more of that. Yeah.
That's for sure.
It's cool.
Well, I believe the most valuable thing we have here is our relationships. Your dad's a lifelong friend, you know, and when I see somebody, and I have somebody that's been like a 30 or 40 year long friend, I think, wow, what a great treasure. The relationships that last are just so valuable to me. And so I want to, with people, develop long-term relationships, because some relationships are in for a year and out for a year and you never see them again. But no fault of the two people, but those long-term relationships. So I think we need to really be intentional about those relationships, keeping up relationships, even if it's just maybe they move away, but you just still stay in touch. It's important. And so relationships, I think, are key.
Yeah,
That's good advice. Well, Kurt, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
it's a
you.
real privilege.
This is an absolute
Been
pleasure.
great. Great.
This has been great.
Real privilege.
And we would love to have you on again if you're up here sometime.
Okay.
Let us know how Nationals go. Maybe we'll have you up
Yeah.
after
Okay.
Nationals.
Yeah, that
After
would
you
be
win
awesome.
Nationals.
Maybe if I'm wearing a medal around my neck, you know.
Right.
That would be
That would
great.
be great. No, we appreciate your wisdom, and I'm really excited for all the people that'll get to hear this message, because
No kidding.
it's valuable for me. I'm going to be listening to it over and over.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
thanks again.
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Appreciate
Appreciate
you.
it.
All right, folks, that's it for us. See you next time.